So, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Caroline Logan. I'm the Programme Director for BuildForce. This is our first virtual career chat of 2024. And what better way to kick it off than with two of our very own candidates? So can I just ask if you've got your camera on just to switch it off, and there'll be an opportunity to switch it back on at the end. It just does affect bandwidth. So we have two of our very own candidates with us today to share their journeys into a very popular world of PM consultancy. So sit back, enjoy. Over to you, Angela.
Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our virtual career chat. My name is Angela Forbes, and it is a great pleasure to welcome you. I hope you are safe and doing well. Now, many of you will know that it is Burns Night this evening, and the format for us is simple. So poems are read, a traditional three-course supper is served, and then whiskey is drunk. So in short, it's eat, drink, and be merry. So I wish you all a very good evening if you celebrate it. Now, a typical Burns toast is always to the lassies. So in that spirit, I would like to thank Caroline for scheduling these virtual chats, lining up the speakers, and indeed everything that she does for the programme. And along with our other lassies on the programme of Kathleen, Alex, Randa, Leah and Neve, a heartfelt appreciation for everything that you do. You are incredible. So round of applause for you all. Now, these virtual chats will roll into their 5th year this year, and it's astounding how useful and popular they've been. It was us trying to bring the construction industry to you during lockdown in the safety of your own homes and workplaces. Now, to raise the bar even higher, our speakers today watched these chats as service leavers, secured their civilian role with BuildForce, and are now being interviewed today as employers. So remember where you were when you watched this today, as I want everyone watching this back here as an employer in the months and years to come, and I want you to reference this chat. So no pressure then to Callum Wildish from AtkinsRealis and Matthew Burton from Mace. And without further ado, we're going to kick straight into the presentations, and we're going to hear more about the project management consultancy role today. So Callum, we're going to hand over to you. We'll switch our cameras off.
My name's Callum Wildish. I'm a PMO consultant for AtkinsRealis, so Project Management Office consultant. I work within ADS&T, so Aerospace, Defence, Security and Technology, and I'm a consultant there in sort of the government space. I'm currently project managing some technology trials for a government client. I left the Royal Navy last year, so my last day in uniform was February, and I officially left in May. I had a bit of time off and didn't join Atkins until October, so coming up to 4 months. So it's really all sort of fresh for me. Please, if you've got any questions, jump in if you've got any burning questions. If not, happy to take questions at the end. The format for this is, so I've sort of set it out as a list of questions. So what questions did I want to know when I was looking for a job? Where did I want to be? And I've sort of asked myself those questions, and I'll try and give you answers which hopefully explain my journey, why I chose project management and consultancy. So what is consultancy? What does it look like, etc., etc. So I'll kick straight off. First question, yeah. So why did you choose project management? For me, it was about previous experience. So my time in the military, air traffic control, very sort of operations, forward-facing delivery of ops. But I think outside of that, there's obviously secondary roles. And I think in 2018, I went and did a introduction to project management course at Shrivenham, the 2-day course. Yeah, really enjoyed it. For me, it was a good moment because I sort of saw the relevance to sort of my day-to-day work, my business as usual stuff, and actually how the sort of fundamentals of project management sort of really relate to, I suppose, military life. That whole planning, execution, closure. That's basically a project cycle, so it's very relevant. Why did I choose project management, not air traffic? Well, it's a good question. I still get asked it today. Why didn't I just leave the Navy and go and be an air traffic controller? I quite enjoy project management. I think it's interesting, it's diverse, and every day is different. Today I'm on site doing a site visit. No Wi-Fi, great, but we've got through it, which is good. And then that last point there, lots of transferable skills. I think that's really important. Because as I said, sort of military life, you have your primary role, but it's your secondary roles where you really sort of get a diverse range of experience and skills. And I think makes service leavers really good all-rounders. And I think those, as a package, I think we make good project managers, and we're adaptable, confident, and all those things really feed into it. And especially in the project space, they want, they're looking for people to be proactive, manage and lead, and that professional work ethic, that discipline, those organizational skills, they all really feed into it. So for me, it was a sort of natural route that I wanted to take. Next question. So how did you cope on resettlement? Yeah, mixed bag for me. I actually started late. I think some roles in the military, sort of, you'll put your notice in, you've got 12 months, and a lot of people can get a lot of work done in that 12 months. The nature of my post in my job, that wasn't achievable. So, I left work in February and then had 2 months to find a job. Absolutely fine. It's slightly scary, of course. Personally, I was juggling house move, a new baby. So, that second point, which you'll get told, treat looking for a job like a full-time job. Yeah, that's absolutely fine, but it's sort of in your means. And I didn't have a lot of time. It was a stressful time, panicky time, but actually quite exciting as well. And that third point, focus the mind, be resilient. And that's one of our strengths as well, is resilience. And for me, that first month without a paycheck was that sort of focus the mind point, and that really sort of pushed me forward and basically led me to jump into it full on in February through to May, and then obviously from May to October I was still doing the same thing. Biggest points on there for me, networking and events. Personally, I find networking quite difficult. I think it's absolutely terrifying, turning up to a place, people you've never met before, and trying to interact. I think that posed a challenge for me, but I just threw myself straight into it. Got to as many networking events as possible in different sectors to really find, first of all, where I wanted to be, but also where I wouldn't mind being. I think there was a big aspect of sort of expectation management. Just trying to find out where I would fit was really important. And that's a process you can't rush. I think you need to take your time with it so that you do make the right decisions long term. So I went to loads of events. I ended up at a BuildForce event in Mace in London. It was really, really good. Met loads of people, got loads of really good interaction from it. And I actually came away with a good sense of actually, yeah, a list of companies from that I would seek to, apply for roles, want to be part of, etc. So yeah, really, and I think the important thing there is those first impressions do count. Chatting with the people on the stands, exchanging, what they're looking for, what projects they're doing, what expertise, what experience they're after, because that's also a selling point. You need to sell yourself and your experience to these people, and then that first impression will leave a mark. You will come away thinking, oh, that's a company I want to work for. That's one I don't want to work for. So I came away from that with a really good list, really good interaction. And I'll move on to the next question. I think this is a really important question. I think, especially on resettlement, you meet people who have the jobs that you really want, and you think, oh, I could see myself doing that. But you're always reluctant to say to them point blank, how did you get your job? Basically, I applied, I think, but again, that was not a straight path to the role of the company. I applied for multiple roles, didn't get anywhere, got interviews with some of them. I think there's a misconception that, especially if you start resettlement early, you'll do loads of networking, loads of work, and you potentially might have a job lined up for you 3-4 months before you leave. That wasn't the case for me. It was sort of all hands to the pump, unemployed, but still sort of confident and relaxed in that process. And I think that's really important. So interviews, relax and be yourself. I went to multiple interviews, ended up with quite a few offers. The Atkins thing was interesting. So I applied for a role. I got a reply saying, thanks, but no thanks. Okay. And then the next day I got an email from Atkins to interview for a project planner role. Looked at the job spec. I think I only really met 2 of the criteria on it, which is absolutely fine. Again, they're after me as a candidate, not necessarily what's on my CV, what qualifications I've got. So I went to the interview, definitely prepare, but relax, be yourself, and try and come across as a human being, and be a person. That was important. I got to the interview, and it wasn't actually for a planning role, it was for a PMO role, so the role I'm in now. Absolutely fine. Did the interview, got an offer, and then at that stage I had, I think, 3 offers on the table. I turned a few down, and I think that last point is really important. It's about choose what's right for you. So take time to consider your options. Obviously, for me, what was important, don't jump at the first offer. Don't jump at the best paid offer or the best company or the most well-known company. I think you've got to do your research, understand the company, try and understand the culture, but also, other things like location, salary, all those things play into it, and you've got to do what's right for you. I think that was important for me because of the stress and the pressure of not having a job. I think it can lead you down sort of the garden path into thinking that I need to take the first opportunity that comes up. But I would say you don't. I think it's important to really sort of take your time and consider. Moving on. What was the first day, week, month like in your new job? Yeah, interesting. Obviously, the first question for me was consultancy. What is it? I think people talk about I knew what project management was, but what was consultancy? What does it look like? What will I be doing? Basically, AtkinsRealis basically loaned me out to companies that are looking for, project managers, planners, analysts, etc. And then we charge that company for my time. It's as simple as that. I joined beginning of October, 2 weeks of onboarding, and then I went straight onto the bench. So a bit of an odd concept, because as a consultant, you're making the company money when you're being charged to a client, whereas if you're not charged to a client, you're not making any money really for the company. So they call it the bench, and it's unproductive time. The bench can be quite isolating. I think everyone else in the company is busy, and sometimes it feels like you're the only one who isn't. But the concept around that is it's time for you to do training, a lot of internal networking, which is really useful. I think I had the time on the bench to reach out to areas of the business that I was interested in to find out what opportunities were available, and also send my CV to those parts of the business to try and get my name in their ear, so then they go to resourcing, and resourcing assign me to that project. So on the bench, you'll have a lot of time with resourcing to discuss potentially where you might end up. They'll have a list of potential clients that you could go and work for. Some of them you might even have to do a sort of pre-chat, like a mini interview with them to make sure you're suitable for them, which is a bit of an interesting concept. But resourcing is great. It's one of those things that, honest and open, tell them what you're interested in, tell them what you want. Sometimes you won't always get what you want, but they will do their best to put you on something that they think will suit you and that you will basically be successful with. So I was on the bench for about a month. Yeah, it was really good. Loads of networking. It was a really useful time. It was an eye-opener to the culture of, I think, outside of the military. So the aspect I did struggle with it was a lot of remote working. I think the culture outside is different. Going from a heavily involved ops environment where you're in a tower every day working with people to sort of in the office 1 or 2 days a week, maybe a site visit, and then working from home is very different. And I think that's quite an adjustment. And then you'll get your first client. So my first client was the one I'm on now. So it's a government department. It felt very much in at the deep end. I think as a consultant, you are supposed to be seen as a bit of an expert in what you're doing, but obviously you've joined a new company, you're not sure of their processes, what corporate tools they use, etc. So it is a bit of a learning curve, but all the teams will have experienced people on them. Those internal networks, so for example, AtkinsRealis has a internal project management network where they hold workshops every week via Teams to troubleshoot questions, etc. So there's so much help available. You've just got to look for it, which I think is really has been really good for me. And then on your client, it's about basically, what does a typical day look like for me? It's usually a few meetings, maybe a stand-up, discuss what's going to happen that day. So I'm currently working agile, so we're in 2-week sprints. So so run through sort of my checklist of deliverables, what admin do I need to do, other meetings potentially, and basically to be there on hand for the client, because they might need something done that your team has the expertise to do, and you'll do that for them. It's quite good. I think it is very different culturally. I think, again, my team's sort of dotted all around the country, so I only see them via Teams. But Atkins encourages you to get around to other offices, meet people, do that face-to-face networking, which I think is really important. And it really is, you get out of it what you put in, and especially in the consultancy space, you can sort of get bogged down with a client and sort of just work for them for a long time, but move around, go to resourcing, ask, move teams, etc. I think there is a definite worry that what if you go to a client and it doesn't work out? That's absolutely fine. That happens. It just might not be a perfect match, and then that's when you rely on resourcing again, and they will do the work to get you where you need to be to perform. Line management, I'm going to talk about that quickly. That is very different. I think it's just not the same in the military. It took some time to get used to. I think you just don't have that same interaction that I felt I had with sort of, my divisional officer and with my division. I think that was very much a sort of forward relationship, whereas now it feels quite distant. It's not, but it just feels like that in comparison. But again, it's about engaging with it, push your line manager for help if you need it and all that sort of stuff. I think that's really important, especially in a consultancy space, because you do feel sort of out there on your own, but actually it's important to always reach back into your, AtkinsRealis, just to sort of get a good grounding and find out what's going on. I'll move on. This is this question. I think I heard it on every single event I went to. People ask it all the time. What courses, qualifications did you achieve on resettlement? I only did management of risk, so I already had my APM stuff. But I think, especially in resettlement, you can get bombarded with, you should do this course, you should do that course. I think for project management, my personal opinion is do one of them. I did APM. It was nice and broad. It was a really good grounding. It gave me the tools with which to sort of translate my military experiences into project management experiences, which obviously look really good in interviews and CVs, etc. The only reason I did management of risk was because aviation background, a lot of risk. I wanted to sort of formalize that, and that's all I did. That's the only reason I did it. I think the most important thing is, and I'll go back to it, it's those transferable skills. Courses, qualifications are great for padding out your CV, but it's about your experience and what you can offer, and what that experience can offer the project management space, and what it can offer potential clients. I think that's really important, and that's where I think BuildForce really came in for me, was that CV. So with BuildForce, we went through my CV, ripped it apart, rebuilt it, and in the end, it looked, very little focus on what qualifications I've got, but a lot of focus on my skills, my experience, and the relevance of that to project management. So I would urge you, sort of do what is right for you. Don't feel like you've got to do 1,000 courses. I'll put this question last. What would you do differently if you could do it again? Nothing. I didn't. It's one of those. I think every situation is different, and the whole resettlement journey, and being part of these networks, being part of BuildForce, is quite tempting just to sort of compare yourself to other people. But actually, you know, your story is your own, your circumstance and context is your own. And for me, I thoroughly believe, you know, everything happens for a reason. Yeah, I had a bit of time off. It was difficult, but I've ended up in a company which I feel values me, and I actually, you know, value being part of it, which I think is part of the relationship moving forward. Consultancy, did I ever see myself going to consultancy? No, but now I'm here. I quite like it. Every day is different. Lots of challenges, lots of new people, and it really, I think, I've really landed on my feet despite all the worry, nervousness, and apprehension. And I think, you know, these networks, if I hadn't have gone to that BuildForce event, I wouldn't have got my list. I wouldn't have had a load of new connections, contacts. I probably wouldn't have applied to some of these companies. My CV probably wouldn't be as good, and I might even be here. So I've got a lot to be thankful for BuildForce. But yeah, would I do anything different? Definitely not. I'm happy. That's me. Any questions? Or are we doing questions at the end?
We're doing questions at the end. Callum, if I could just
Perfect.
jump through the screen and cuddle you, son, I would. Thank you so much. That was amazing.
So would I. So would I. I'm pouring in the background. Thank you,
Oh,
Callum.
bless you. Okay, we'll pass to Matthew. Hi, Matthew, and I think you're going to bring your presentation up. Thank you, Callum.
I am. Hi, good afternoon,
Good
everyone.
minutes.
Let me just share and see if we can get that going. Hopefully you can all see that. Just give me a nod.
We can. It's come up. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matt Burton. I'm a senior project manager at Mace. I think a lot of my presentation will echo what Callum said, but certainly, hopefully, it's a slightly different perspective. Certainly, I started from a different place, different service, different grade, and also my job is very different to Callum's, although very similar. And also, my experience of actually getting a job is quite different as well. So hopefully, that will help. That will help to kind of give you some more information on that. So, as Angela said, she asked us to look at where, you know, to go back emotionally and cognitively, I guess, where we were when we were sat at where you are now. And that, for me, that was about 2 years ago. And I guess the three big things that I was interested in, or I wanted to know, the first one was around, you know, what actually is this job? What is the day-to-day of this job? Is it something that I'm going to be interested in? Is it something that I could do? Because again, for some bizarre reason, a job description that you see on a website usually doesn't really cover it. The second part of that was, you know, once I understood what the job was, could I convince an employer that I could do this job based on what was on my CV, what my skills and experience were? And then should I actually find an employer who would give me the opportunity, you know, would I be able to hold my own in this job fairly quickly? Is it something that I would enjoy, and is it something that I would develop in? So based on that, that's what I've built my my presentation around. It's just 3 or 4 slides. I'll rattle through. Happy to cover any gaps at the end in the questions. So I'll take you on my journey because everyone loves a journey story. I joined the army in 2009. I commissioned into the Royal Artillery, and then I spent a further 12-ish years in the army. About 2/3 of that was doing the good stuff that we all joined to do. Especially for me, I was primarily down in 3 Commando Brigade in Plymouth and Poole. You know, got to see the world, got to carry a heavy backpack in deserts, the Arctic, jungles. Also got to, you know, drink some beers in some amazing places and work with some really amazing people. When I promoted to major, that's when I kind of, the last third of my career was kind of in the business of defence, and actually that's where I picked up, in retrospect, most of the kind of skills and experience that's really stood me in good stead from a project management perspective. So I worked in what is now Strategic Command on some military tech kind of innovation and research projects, and also a thing called the Information Advantage Change Campaign, which was a big transformation program. Again, you know, kind of very much a program project management piece. I was pulling my hair out at the time, but in retrospect, it was some really valuable experience. I then got drafted to PGHQ during COVID to work in the COVID response team, which was 6 months of 24 hours on call, so not ideal, really. That's when I actually pulled the plug as well, pulled the pin, sorry, while I was doing that job. But again, in retrospect, you know, very high pressure, lots of exposure to how defence works, how the government works, and it was a really interesting job in retrospect. But yeah, I put in my notice at that point, and then spent the last year and a half of my career doing resettlement, but also being posted at HQ Arc, the NATO land force. And again, I think even though I left in May 2022, I think my last day in office was, I think the week after Russia invaded Ukraine, so I think it was pretty good timing from my part that I missed a lot of additional work there. I was quite pleased to wave goodbye as everyone started to deploy to Poland. Quite flippantly, I put the bomb here. From my perspective, I had no useful qualifications, no degree, no engineering background, but I did obviously have some, as Callum said as well, some really useful experience and some useful transferable skills, which I'll go into. And again, as the BuildForce team have asked me to kind of emphasise, I had absolutely no formal construction experience, just an interest and an interest to go in there. So my settlement, very similar to what you'll be looking at now. I did the CTP workshops and so on. Just started to pull my CV together, went on a couple of LinkedIn webinars, which I really recommend if you get the chance to start to pull that LinkedIn profile together. For me, I spent quite a lot of time with the Officers Association. I think it's now called the Forces Employment Charity, and they don't just do officers; they cover all ranks. Again, they're really useful for me because they had a lot of exposure to different sectors, lots of look at different sectors. And again, for me, all I ever really wanted to do was be in the army. So when that wasn't no longer an option, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, and I looked at a lot of different sectors, including, of course, the built environment. It really appealed to me, and so I linked in with BuildForce, and we'll go on to where that kind of got me in a minute. But yeah, in terms of qualifications, I think I did IOSH managing safely as well, which is interesting, but hasn't won me any work at this point. But APM, PMQ was my primary piece, and as Callum said, it gives you a really good foundation of project management and is recognised within our sector, as one of the important qualifications. Our graduates in the consultancy space, they work towards chartership with the MCI, with the CIOB, but also with APM. So it's definitely one that is worth having, certainly from a Mace perspective. And then through BuildForce, I submitted my CV to something called the Mace Military Program, which is effectively a military support and military recruitment program. I submitted my CV, got a nice call from a guy called Mo, who we had a chat about what I wanted to do, where I was based, what my expectations were, what I'd done. And then I got a phone call for an interview with the Mace healthcare team. Had an interview, it's probably more of a conversation, if I'm honest. And then the day after, I had a phone call off making me an offer for a job. So again, I actually agree with Callum's perspective of not accepting your first offer, but I actually did. And I'll go into the reasons why I did a bit later on. And again, we'll go into actually there's a bit of a negotiation, and the healthcare team couldn't really meet my expectations. And so at that point, I was offered a different job with the higher education team, which works under the local government sector, effectively, but working in higher education, which is where I am now. So I left in May, had a bit of downtime, had a second child, got married, and then I started with Mace in September 2022. So quite experienced now. Had a good run. Like I said, my job on paper is a senior project manager in the consultancy side. I work client side, and again, there'll be this conversation around client side, contractor side, between consultancy and delivery. This is very much in the consultancy space, in that client side space, and I'll expand on that in a minute. As I said, I'm working in the higher education sector, so helping universities and the associated kind of organisations that work with universities to effectively either expand or improve their estates. That's the majority of my job. Worth making the point as well, at my level, the day-to-day is project management, but as a senior manager within the business, there's other responsibilities as well. So I've got CRM as client relationship management. So there's very much a piece around making sure the clients you're working with are happy with the service they're providing, but more importantly, if they do have more business down the line that they're considering you, or they're considering Mace for those opportunities. And business development is obviously something that was fairly alien to me from where I was coming from, but something that one of the learning points that I'm really having to lean into now and really get to understand. And I do have line manager responsibilities. My team's quite small, but I do have direct responsibilities, and that's the same as very similar but different to what I was doing as a troop commander, as an officer. And as I've said, the BMQ qualification was really useful, and it's now helping me to work towards my membership of the AMP, which again, certainly from some clients' perspectives, is equivalent to a chartership with some of the other organisations. So it's something that the business supports, business will help to pay for, and that's something that obviously is a good formalisation of your skills and experience. So the next two slides I pulled from the Mace Military Network slides. So these are their words, not mine. But again, it kind of resonates because it echoes the reasons why I was interested in Mace and why I chose Mace. So Mace is a business, it's a global business, massive amounts of work in the Americas and in the Middle East, particularly at the moment, and also very encouragingly, a really active support and encouragement to people. Should you wish to go and work abroad for Mace, they'd absolutely support that, and it's actually seen as a really positive thing. So maybe not for where I am at the moment with 2 young children, but if it is something that appeals to you, Mace is a good place to look at that. And then regionally, a good regional spread. It is kind of London centric, but there are regional offices, and more importantly, there's a formalized and very adult attitude towards flexible working. And again, I'm happy to expand on that in the questions. But yeah, I'm sitting at home today talking to you about this, and it's all the flexible working option is there from up front, and it's part of my contract. And then as you can see here, I won't go into all these, but you can probably see the business units within the business pretty much covering every aspect of the built environment, every aspect of social life there, and we've got elements in all of those. And for me, the obvious kind of, probably for most of us, the obvious segue was into a defence or national security contract, and many people do that, but I wanted to try and break away. The reason for that, speaking to one of the other companies, for a defence role, the conversation was, you'd go into the client on day one, and you'd be working under the 1-star. And effectively, I thought, well, I'll be doing the same job that I was doing before, just not in uniform. And I really wanted to make a clean break from that. So that was my reason not to go into the defence sector. On the right hand side here, just a point to make that, we're talking about project management, but there's all these other roles that potentially are open to you, and lots of expertise and skill sets there that correlate from what you've been doing in your military career. And again, not necessarily 100% in the construction space. Our group and commercial partners are those really important support roles in marketing and communications, in HR, information management. So it's not just about putting on a hard hat and looking at drawings of buildings. There are other in an organization the size of Mace, and indeed all of BuildForce's partners, they have that organizational infrastructure where they need quality people in all those roles. So again, I won't go into the details here. You probably heard these transferable skills over time and time again now, going onto these webinars. And these are the things that I had in my CV and the things I spoke about. And I guess it's what the important piece is, being able to demonstrate, being able to talk to these from your own experience. These are the things that Mace are interested in. This is the reason why Mace are interested in actively recruiting ex-military, because these aren't readily available skill sets in the civilian world. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that everyone on this call can talk personally about these qualities, and so it's just about making sure that you have them up there front and center in your CVs. And as I said, the Mace military program in Mace is about recruiting talent, and I'm happy to go into the details of that, and I'll give you some contact details at the end. But ultimately, Mace is also supportive of military community within the business. So we have the Military of Mace Employment Recognition Group, and it's also a gold award. It's also gold award on the employer recognition scheme with the military covenant. So it's not the same obviously as being in the military, but there is still this military community that you can lean into, and that you can engage with it as much as you want. For example, at Mace they have a monthly meetup for drinks in London, and we're looking to do extracurricular mud runs and that kind of thing, to just to keep your hand in that military community. And again, interestingly, it's not just in our military network isn't just military veterans. It's people. There's quite a few second and third degree of separation. So people that are working on military contracts, for example, are more than welcome to join, and it just expands that community and also expands your network. So going into the detail of what my job actually is, on the left hand side here in the green box, effectively what I do is I manage a multidisciplinary design team. Going back to your project management 101, for the client, building a building or refurbishing a building is not their business as usual, and very often they won't have the in-house resources or skill sets to do that project, and so they pay Mace to bring a consultant like myself in to help out with that. We'll then put together a multidisc team, which is everyone you'd expect: your architects, your structural engineers, your landscape designers, your planning consultants, to help the client basically to hit all these things underneath to realize exactly what they want. And again, certainly in my sector, in the university sector, you can imagine the stakeholder mapping is quite extensive and quite difficult. Lots of competing agendas, lots of competing expectations. So actually realizing that brief in itself could be an 18-month program. And also, more importantly, you've then got to balance that brief with the budget expectations. as I said here, a big part of project management, all project management, is understanding what we call the program. So it would have been a schedule when I was in the military, but effectively the timeline and of course the associated risks. We then get down to the interesting bit, actually designing the building, making sure, and again, there's a whole process that lays that out, getting planning consents, etc. And then a big part of project management in my job is you act also as the contract administrator. And when we talk about that, we're talking about the building contract. So, there's a level of consultancy and advice in terms of appointing, procuring the right contractor, making sure that you're going to get good value for money for the client. And then once that contract is signed between the contractor and the client, you administer that contract on their behalf. And there's a lot of contract administration that goes into that, and that's a big part of what we do for the client. And then once we're in construction, where I am on one of my projects at the moment, it's about quality management and it's about change management, and it ultimately comes down to that on time, to the budget, and to the expected quality. Again, being very honest, it is mostly meetings and emails and Teams calls and spreadsheets, but it does cover a really wide area of disciplines, and I put them all on the bottom there. And that's what really appeals to me. You're not doing the same thing every day. You're learning something new every day, and addressing different areas, different concerns. And again, it's probably worth noting that in a company like Mace, and probably most of these companies, depending on what project you're on, and I guess what level, what grade you're going in at, you might be focusing on a really bigger, complex project. You might be only focusing on one or two of those areas. You might be responsible for the planning permissions. Maybe that would be your primary focus. But whereas on the smaller projects, for example, where I work, so one of my projects is a new build university in the University of Peterborough, £30 million. I'm responsible, myself and a commercial manager between us are responsible for all of those aspects. The single point of responsibility, effectively. But again, that's something that will flip and change depending on what project you're on and what job you're on. But that list at the bottom there covers pretty much a broad element of what I'm dealing with on a day-to-day. As I said in the yellow, the kind of summary from my perspective is it's effectively problem solving, communicating, and just keeping the plate spinning. There's once the program starts, once you pay the money with the contractor, the program starts, and you've got to keep the plate spinning. And again, I guess from a management theory perspective, what really appealed to me about doing construction and what I've really enjoyed is that it's a complicated problem rather than a complex problem. I kind of felt that I'd wasted too much of my time and effort in my life on complex problems where we were never going to get to an end result because the deck was stacked against us. Whereas, building a building for the most part is a complicated problem. It's difficult, it's still a lot of work to be done there. But most of those problems can be resolved with systems and processes, and more importantly, you get a tangible outcome at the end. You can see the fruits of your labour, and the photos here kind of there to exemplify that. On the left hand side is where we were in June last year, a derelict car park in Peterborough, and on the right hand side is this today. And we've got a brand new teaching building there that will PC practically complete in July, and the university will open that to students in September. So not only a physical building that we've built, but the social value and the change that encompasses, and all of that is running through myself and the commercial manager who's delivering that on behalf of the client. And then finally in the purple box, just a big piece for me was my job, my week, my day-to-day, I'm either on site, and on site could be in your hard hat looking at the building on site here and speaking to the contractors, or it could be as per my other job, which I think is more similar to the Callum's, where I'm seconded into a client. I'm seconded into the Warwick University Estates team, and I go there and I work in their offices and I work on their problems. So I'm either on site or in the Birmingham Mace office, kind of catching up with my team and my line manager, or I'm working from home, and that's formalized in my contract. And the big thing, probably the primary reason for me leaving the military, is allow me to have a work-life balance that you're never gonna get in the military. And my wife's got a career that she's progressing in, and we moved to Birmingham because of that career. And also we've got 2 young children, and I'm 100% co-parenting with her in that, and that's what this job has allowed me to do. So to conclude then, kind of top tips on the left-hand side here, again, echoes a lot of what Callum said. You got to do your homework. I was like Callum, I kind of left it to the last 4 months and then had a lot of catching up to do. And that is about research. It's about deciding what you want to do. But I think more importantly, it's about deciding what's important to you. Like, I had a lot of friends who went into professional services, into the tech sector, potentially, better remuneration, definitely, but probably more expectation in terms of the workload and the commitment to the roles. And again, it's about what's important to you, why are you leaving the military, and what you want to get out of your next career. I put here, get professional to critique your CV. For me, this came through the Officers Association. Again, I don't know if they still offer this job, this service, but my CV was kind of critiqued by a HR recruiter, and she tore it apart in a constructive way. But more importantly, she was also the first person that said to me, like, based on what you've got here and what jobs you're interested in, this is the salary band that you could realistically be asking for. And it was the first time someone kind of laid that out for me. So I found it really, so again, to be honest, if it wasn't offered, it's probably something I would be happy to pay for, because it gave you an insight into the outside recruiting world. As Callum said, networking, speak to as many people as you can, especially if you are coming in with no experience. You'll find that you're not the only one, and then give some of those top tips. And then again, just to echo Callum, BuildForce was fantastic for me. It was the game changer. The online training they provide was a really great baseline. From that, I then got onto a mentoring program. Some of those were just phone calls with people, single phone call. One of them was a much more sustained support over a couple of months, which led to a work experience opportunity. And again, a bit strange for me as someone in my mid-30s to be going into an office as the work experience boy. But what that did do, those 3 or 4 days I spent at Kia, I sat down with a construction project manager and realized I could do your job. I can see this as an achievable job. It's gave me that confidence to make that decision and pull the trigger. And then on the right hand side, I guess this is just my experience, again, very much my experience in terms of what I've experienced since I've started in the civilian world. Expect a different working culture, and again, that can be a pro and a con. In terms of a pro, in that your time's your own. Certainly in my job, there's no one ringing me up in the morning to see what I'm up to today. There's no muster. It's very much you do what you need to do. As I said, my flexible working is contractually it's 3 days on site or in the office and 2 days working from home, but that's not set in stone. You do what you need to do, and if you need to have a day off because your kid, or you need to have a day working from home because your kid's sick, or you've got a parents' evening, that's all in there. That's all flexible. As long as the outputs maintain, the client's happy, that's where you work. I think from a con perspective, I think it's, as Callum said, it's a different working environment, and certainly from my experience in the military, there was a relentless pursuit of excellence pretty much across the board. People wanted to do a really good job. That's not necessarily the perspective that you'll have. My expectation was always that if you send someone an email, they would reply to it within 2 or 3 days. That's not so much the case, certainly from my experience. And you just have to adjust your expectations accordingly, because if I wanted to, I could work till 11 o'clock every night. But there's no need to. I think that's the point. And it's about just more. It's more my problem than it is the business's problem. It's about adjusting your expectation. Again, to echo Callum, my experience has been more management than leadership. Obviously, there is leadership within the business, and I've tried to, certainly with my line management, my direct reports, to bring that coaching and mentoring on as well. But day to day, it is more about management than it is about leadership. You're not in that same relationship with your co-workers and your subordinates as you would have in the military. Again, very much my perspective. For me, there's been a requirement to be humble and be quite realistic. Some of the people in my grade are 10 years younger than me. Some of my bosses are 5 years younger than me. And looking forward, they will be promoting before I do, because they've got 15 years in the industry, and most of them are chartered engineers. So there's a bit of a realism about there. There's definitely an opportunity for me to develop, get more experience, and to be successful. But it's going to take time, because you need to be, what your CV to a client is built on what projects you've delivered, and projects take 2, 3, 5 years to deliver. So you need to have delivered some projects before you're going to see that payoff, certainly from my perspective. Whereas I think my understanding is maybe in the tech sector or in some of those professional services, Big Four, you could probably demonstrate success a bit quicker. That was certainly my takeaway from the research that I did. Again, to echo Callum, I found networking a lot harder in the civilian world, because you don't have those enforced socializations. You don't have that common understanding, and so you just have to put effort in. And then, but again, for me, the real positive, I guess I would say, certainly for the majority of my military career, 70 to 90% of my time was taken up by my job, and that's no longer the case. And it's been quite nice to actually be able to enjoy things that I want to do and that my family want to do, rather than what my boss wants to do. So yeah, I say at the bottom here, I think Terry's actually just jumped on the call. He might be able to jump in if there's any questions. But Terry heads up our Mace military program. But I think if you were looking to submit anything or go through Caroline through the BuildForce team, But again, my email's there. I'm very happy for people to reach out and chat if they want to.
Matthew, that was incredible. Thank you very much. I'll ask Callum to join us. If you just take your presentation down. Terry, if you are there, you're more than welcome to come on and say hello to everybody. Just introduce yourself. He's got an epic shirt on today, has Terry. So hi there.
One of my 2 check shirts, he said. I'm Terry Price, Mace Project Program. Matt gave a really good overview and a Life at Mace presentation there, really informative. And the value of that from Matt, who's living this every day, was I'm literally sat back dealing with multiple business units, multiple applications from reservists and veterans and service leavers. If you want further information, Matt's kindly put the email on there. But just be aware that I do speak to the BuildForce team every week. We have an hour's sessions, all BuildForce candidates. We review line by line every week. So any updates, if you are in contact with me via LinkedIn and you think, oh, the phone's gone dead, rest assured, weekly we go through all the BuildForce candidates. So thanks very much, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you very much. And a veteran yourself, obviously the Marines, was it 38 years?
34. It felt like
34.
38 there, Angela.
So 34. Right. Okay. A couple of final questions just in these last few minutes. I'll kick it off. A few have come in. Just to you, Callum, a quick one on your title. It said there Project Management Office. Is there a difference between that and the Project Management Consultancy role?
Slightly, yeah. So I work in a division called PMOS, so it's Project Management Office Services and Solutions. So it's basically a lot of program and portfolio stuff, but obviously within the company, they're always looking for project managers, and those opportunities are there. So again, as Matt said, you can join as a project manager, but the joy of consultancy is there might be other roles that you can fit into, which is, so I joined expecting to go into a PMO and do some sort of analyst role, but actually straight into a project management role is great, because I know that there's other options out there. So yeah, that's just my title, but yeah, I could be doing anything.
Okay, and you said, I loved your comment on project management. You says you enjoyed it. So how important a question is that to our service leavers, being good at something as opposed to enjoying something?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. I think for me, I think if you enjoy it, you will naturally be better at it. You'll spend more time at it. You'll spend more time trying to get better at it as well. I think that's the key thing. I think if you don't enjoy it, I wouldn't. It's worth trying. I think these things are always worth trying, but if you don't enjoy it, then there's other options. I think that's also important. You don't have to be a project manager. You can do other things within the project space, because you can still enjoy delivery and delivering projects, but you might not want that management role. So I think enjoying it is important.
And Matthew, is that a question you asked yourself? What do you enjoy as opposed to what you're good at?
Absolutely, yeah, I think so. And again, for me, as I went back to my presentation, it's about those tangible outputs and the satisfaction. Having worked on some projects in the military where, like I say, it was very frustrating because regardless of how much time and effort you put into it, you weren't seeing the outputs. And again, I guess that links into enjoyment. You have to like doing this work because there is some hard, boring work that needs to be done when you're reviewing contracts and you're reviewing you're reviewing cash flow and things like that. But the reason you do that is so that you keep the program online and the exciting bits still happen. So I think, yeah, you definitely need to enjoy it. But as Callum said, like I say, what I enjoy about project management is the breadth. Most military people are generalists, I think. And so, that translates very well, but actually you could become a specialist in parts of project management if that was something, if you're really interested in risk, for example, or project controlled. If you've got a quality management kind of bent, then there are those more focused specializations that you could do as well.
And just on that, those generalist roles you described as spinning plates, solving problems, etc. How much did your lack of construction experience hinder or even help you in this role?
So it hindered me in that you're obviously not going to be able to approach a problem the same way as someone who's got a master's in engineering and has built 3 buildings already. But there was a lot of reading, a lot of catching up quickly. The construction world had its own Wikipedia, and it's been absolutely invaluable to do that. But equally, I guess it's also an advantage in that you look at the problem from a layman's perspective, and ultimately the client is probably going to be a layman as well. So you've got to explain that problem to them and the options and the risks, and for them to make a decision. So actually, if the specialist, if the structural engineer can explain it to you and you understand it, it means that the client's going to understand it, and ultimately, the job is this middleman, or woman getting information from the specialist and giving it to the client to make a decision.
Okay, and again, the same question to you, Callum. You says that you attend the PM workshops that Atkins run on a weekly basis. What areas did you have to upskill on kind of quickest?
So definitely for me, the commercial aspects, obviously coming from a military background, you don't really have that commercial knowledge. So it's about finding the commercial people in the business and asking them questions. There's a few internal courses as well that will teach you, the rough ideas, and then it's up to you to sort of get stuck in and then ask those questions. I think that's the key thing. It is, go for it, get involved, and fail early and ask those questions. And I think because initially it's quite scary, especially when you're looking at large sums. I think it's quite daunting and it can be quite a stopper on somebody. But actually, the company helps, and those workshops are great. And set up your own workshop. I would set up a weekly meeting with some other project managers to sort of interact and talk about our own problems, because we're more specifically, which is another great tool as well.
And just on that kind of failing piece, what was the emotional support like? And as I see somebody's asked, are there buddies, are there mentors? Have you got a kind of safe space in those first weeks or months you can go to?
Yeah, so Atkins, obviously you got your line manager. So I got quite a good line management structure. Sort of, I have quite a good interaction with my line manager and his line manager. So I've got multiple people to lean on, but also I have a buddy, someone in the business who's very experienced, who sort of is there to ask questions, ask the stupid questions. You join a company, you're on probation for 6 months. So there's questions you might not want to ask your line manager. So go to your buddy, and they're completely honest and open. And that's been a really useful tool for me.
Right, okay, fantastic. We've got a hand up at the moment. Have you got a quick question from Matthew? Hi, Matthew. Matthew
Hi,
Boxford.
team. Dialing in from Abu Dhabi, so don't feel any sympathy for me whatsoever. 27 degrees there. Big thank you to all of you for organising today. Really kindly and honestly, it's fantastic. I just really wondered from Callum and Matt what the perception of civvies are towards the military. Are we still cliched in terms of bullets and bombs and fighter jets, or are people more pragmatic about what we do or have done? Over.
Matthew, do you want to pick that up?
Yeah, hi Matthew. Yeah, good question. I think it's a little bit of both. I'll be honest, I think it's not something I really spoke about or really trumpeted, and probably most people I work with have got no idea that I was in the military, and it was a conscious decision from me. I think there is a little bit of that expectation. You get the usual questions about where have you been and what have you done, but equally, I think very quickly when they see what it means, obviously I had to tailor my language quite quickly. That was one of the big pieces for me, both in terms of colourful language and in terms of stop using words that no one else understands what they mean. That was a big takeaway. But yeah, once you actually see what else it means in the military, going back to those transferable skills, it kind of very quickly, that it was novel for a bit that I was the older guy coming in from the military. Very quickly, I was, I was just another senior project manager who was doing my job.
Okay, I think for us at BuildForce, Matthew and Caroline can jump in as well. When we were having these conversations and when we set up this programme 15 years ago, we were battling the cliches in terms of the perception of what a veteran is. But just in this 10, 15-year period, it's kind of industry's moved massively. They've got military programmes, they've signed armed forces covenants, they properly understand the value that these service leavers bring. So without any doubt, we have seen huge movement, much more tolerance and patience, and you're now seeing actually some civilian contractors in awe of the veterans that they're bringing over. Hugely impressed. I am mindful we're going to have to kind of wrap up. We do have one more question, which we'll take from Gavin. Hi, Gavin. Thank you for
thanks
that.
very much. A quick question. So I haven't started to think about a project management qualification as yet, but also there's companies that turn around and say that they have their own style of project management qualification. Is it worth still going to do an independent one as opposed to waiting to see what the company wants to deliver as well? If that makes sense.
Yeah, Callum, do you want to pick that one up?
Yeah, sure. I would definitely do one. I think so. AtkinsRealis have an internal AtkinsRealis project chartership. Obviously, it's it is a chartership, but it's sort of internally recognised. Whereas, which is obviously important and it's great, but I think having that external qualification, it shows employers that you can think outside of your own company. And you can actually be diverse and look at a framework that is different from theirs. I think that's quite important to have that sort of variety, because especially in consultancy, you don't know who you're going to be working for. You don't know what the client's going to be. You don't know what the structure is going to be. So it's about, go out there, do a course. Don't wholly rely on what the company offers. I think that's important.
Can you echo that, Matthew, as well? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd echo that. I think, and again, my experience, my understanding, APM, the PMQ qualification is just a baseline understanding of project management in the round. I think Prince 2 is similar, but only certain government departments kind of are interested in it. I think you should do the research on what companies you're interested in, and then you should be able, it should guide you on which ones you need to go for.
Good. And Nick Woodhams. Hi, Nick.
Hi guys, just I know it's the last one, so it'll be really quick. I think you can answer it really quickly. What's your 5-10 year plan? Where do you go with this? What would you like to do?
Start with you, Matthew. Your mute's off.
Thanks. Hi, Nick, an old friend of mine. Good to see you. Reach out, let's have a chat. 5 years, again, as I said, I need that time to get some projects under my belt, and also to kind of improve my qual profile. But 5 years, I'll be looking at promotion to associate director. I'm expecting. I think it's not unheard of in 10 years. Whether it be with Mace, whether it be with someone else, there's another change for the military. There's no lifelong loyalty here. It's about who's going to pay you or remunerate you the best for your skills and experience. And so I would be looking to see, having an interesting conversation with my line manager if I'm not getting what I want out of the business.
Okay, and Callum, for you, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?
5 years, yeah, still with Atkins. I think it's important to get that sort of body of work, get that experience, and sort of get a consistent, record of delivery. And then after that, who knows? I think that's important.
Okay, final question to both of you. Did you transfer over just on pay parity, roughly what you were earning in the armed forces, just to give a feel?
Yeah, on parity for me.
Same for you, Matthew. Yeah, I think you're on mute, but yeah, I think it was a nod. Right.
Sorry,
okay.
It was.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, we can't ask more questions, but just to thank Callum and Matthew for their incredible contribution today. Great speakers, great advice, fantastic employers, and great roles and opportunities there. So please get in touch if you have any questions, and we will help you take this further. I'll pass back to Caroline just to quickly close.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and it is always quite emotional, heartfelt when we get two of our candidates that we have worked with and supported them through their transition to seeing them on the other side and coming back to give at the programme. And I know Angela echoes my words. So thanks, guys. It was great. And also just to say, it's really nice to ask that pay parity question, because we get so many professionals say you've got to be prepared to take a cut in your salary. It's not true. Okay, it's not true. Anyway, I'm going to end really, really quickly and speak really quickly because I know we've all got to go, other stuff to do. So just what's coming up next. So 8th of February, we have HS2 joint venture BBVS, who are at Old Oak Common. They're giving a virtual career chat in advance of their fantastic project day that they're doing on the 24th of April at Old Oak Common. An opportunity for you to have a site tour, go back, meet the team and talk about opportunities, the breadth of opportunities, into our very fantastic National Insight Day on the 25th of April at the iconic London Stadium. Fantastic venue, fantastic employers, every skill set wanted. So whatever you're looking to do, we want you. Come and join us, get yourself booked in. That's it. That's a wrap. Have a fantastic day. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Thank you, Callum. Thank you, Matthew.
Thanks all. Cheers.
Brilliant.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Thanks, gents. Awesome. Thank you very much.